Hi, I'm Beth. I'm the coordinator of the Older Women's Network in New South Wales. And I'd really like to encourage older women to get hold of their local network and find out what it's about and join it. I think perhaps if you've heard about the network or seen our theatre group performing, it might have awakened your interest. And what we're finding is more and more women are starting to connect with the network, probably through our wellness programs. We've just had the wellness launch of Kicking Up Autumn Leaves, which is women owning wellness, and that's really important in our organisation. What that program's about is women taking control of their own health and programs that have been designed by the women themselves to actually improve their own health. And in the long run, that's a big saving for the government, because those women are actually looking after their own well-being. It's about not just your physical health, but your mental health. By joining with a network of other women, you've got that kind of support that sees you through. So, that's really important. That's what the network's about. Women who are facing their ageing now, it's actually acknowledging that that's where they're at. I think for the baby boomers, they are the generation who actually invented youth culture and wanted to own it. And it's very difficult for those women to actually come to terms with the notion that they are getting older and to face age and embrace age and actually enjoy what age has to offer, but also come to terms with the difficulties that they face now that they're getting older. And that can be hard, but I think if you join with a network of other women who have been through some of those problems and some of those challenges, then those problems are a lot easier to cope with. You keep growing, you keep finding new resources within yourself, and I think it's the challenges, because your life changes. There's a lot of changes to cope with, and I think that's, for the baby boomers particularly, that's one of the hardest things. I was really surprised with our, we have a group within the network that we reached out to last year. We had a forum for younger older women, which was aimed in the Sydney region at actually finding these women who hadn't yet identified with the network and hadn't yet identified with the concept of growing older. And this group, we've sort of followed them through, and what really surprised me when we said, well, what is it that you want to, what are the issues you want to explore? And surprisingly enough, they came up with one of the issues they wanted to look at was grief. And I thought, grief? Okay, well, what do baby boomers have to grieve about? The things that they're grieving about, it's not necessarily grieving about, impending death, but it's grief about change. And that change can be from a whole lot of things. It can be change in their circumstance. A lot of the times it's about change in their family arrangement. It can be about change in their workplace. A lot of women are feeling insecurity in their job situation. It can be from grief from loss of a breast. I mean, we've got women who are going through mastectomies, double mastectomies, coping with cervical cancer. You've got a range of different issues that they're having to cope with. Women who are going through traumas with their relationships, who are coming to terms with the changes in their bodies, but the changes in their family relationships. They're grieving over all sorts of different things, coping with not just their own grief, but that of their friends, having to be, I think, the rock upon which the community rests. Women often have to be the support person for everybody else, and that's a huge burden. And I think one of the things that women find if they've been in the workplace for a long time, when they approach retirement, suddenly all the touchstones they had for their own sanity and for their own sense of place and belonging start to break down. Who they are in the community, their own sense of identity, their sense of place and belonging begins to deteriorate. And I think that's the crisis that they go through when they approach retirement. So they've got the loss of job. Often with that, you've got your loss of income. or certainly a deterioration in income. You've got, there's a lot of talk now about the lack of superannuation for women on retirement. That's a huge issue, particularly comparatively compared to men. Their families, and that financial stress can often put strain on the family. If the relationship breaks down, often women will have to move, physically relocate. So they're moving from their family breaks down, they may have to even move house. So they lose the community that they've come to know around them. They lose neighbours. If their relationship breaks down, they lose friends. Those social networks, they really have to struggle very hard to set up new networks and new friendships. And I think that's something that the Older Women's Network is often a platform for women who are feeling or at great risk of social isolation. They can come to the network and find a way to reconnect with other women in an environment where you have women who have been through similar circumstances, and you can do it in a very non-threatening way. Joining a Tai Chi class, joining a relaxation class, nobody's going to put a great deal of pressure on you. It's hardly taxing, but it's a way to actually be close to people and get to know them slowly and build up those friendships. And I think that's really important to women, because it's not threatening, but you still have that degree of intimacy, and you can choose the level to which you want to interact with people. Gradually you can decide, yes, I'd like to join the film group. I think I might take a writing class. I might just say, yes, I'll go out with this group of people. We might do coffee on a Saturday morning. And slowly but surely you can start to build up contacts. And I think that's really important to a group of women that may have had other areas of their life break down and fall apart.
My name is Jane Gillespie, and I'm a breast cancer survivor, and I want to talk about the emotional issues around being a person who has cancer and also a person who survives cancer. What I have learnt is that the minute we're given a diagnosis of cancer, is that we are pushed into a grief and loss situation. Because the life that we knew before cancer has been taken away from us, and we can never, ever get it back again. No matter how much we might want it, if we thought our lives were wonderful before, you cannot go back. And I have, since my cancer experience, I've done counselling training. And one of the things I've learned is that a current grief will bring up other unresolved grief from your life before, whatever's going on right now. And I had a lot of stored up grief, which may or may not have even contributed to my cancer in the first place. But certainly, it was like the cancer was the straw that broke the camel's back, or it broke the dam, or whatever, however you want to look at it. I had been married for 24 years when my husband decided he wanted somebody else. Our third child still is, disabled. Nobody had ever said to either of us when she was born that we might need some counselling around that. So there was all the grief of the loss of hopes and dreams for what her life might be. My two older children are adopted, so there was a lot of grief around the fact that I thought that I couldn't have children. And various other things that have happened in my lifetime, none of which I had ever been able to grieve properly. So the end result for me was that despite the fact that I kept a very stiff upper lip and kept a brave face throughout the year that I was coping with this, when my treatment finished, I also decided that I no longer wanted to do the job that I was doing, because I thought, well, life's too short to be doing something that felt the equivalent of going in and banging my head against a brick wall and then wondering why I had a headache when I went home at night. So I resigned from my job, and I thought I'll give myself a year to find out what it is I want to do with my life. And I also felt guilty. I felt like I'd neglected my youngest child while I was dealing with the disease. So I thought, well, I'll get her back on track, and I'll do some courses, and I'll find out where I want to take my life. And I resigned from work on Christmas Eve, 1994, and in the middle of January I hit the wall. And I've since learnt it was probably because I had nowhere to hide from my feelings. I was no longer in the hospital system, so as much as I'd been longing to get out of the hospital system, I realised it was giving me a sense of safety, like somebody is doing something, somebody is taking care of me. And I didn't have to get out of bed in the morning to go to work, so I just fell in an absolute heap. And I thought, I'm going to die. And I've never really lived. And what's going to happen to my daughter? All she knows is being dependent on me. And I'd always thought that she would die before me because of the particular syndrome that she has. And suddenly I was having to face the fact that it could be around the other way. And she had no way of being independent. Or so I thought. Yeah. So the upshot of all of this was I basically ran away. I thought, this is too hard, I don't want this anymore. So I sent my daughter to live with her father, and I moved to Sydney. The intention was that I was just going to have 6 months out, and then I would go back to being good Jane, who was always there, who was always reliable, who was always responsible, and who would always be there to look after Katie. And I remember driving out of Canberra with just my clothes, some bedding, portable TV, sewing machine, a few plates, a few knives and forks, and that was it. And I was so overcome with guilt. I thought, how can I leave my child? You know, what kind of a terrible person am I? But I just knew that I was going to leave her anyway. If I didn't do this, I thought I have to have the opportunity to go away and find out how to live a life for myself so that I can be there for her.
Hello, Irene.
Yes, hello. I hope you've come to buy the house.
I wish I could. I've come to see you.
Come in, too.
So this is your latest project, the house
Yes.
is on the market.
Yes, that's right. Yes, it's all rather sudden. Yes, I'm selling the house because I've got a new granddaughter, and she's just a few months old, and she's in London, and I just want to be a part of her life. She sounds a fascinating creature. I must show you what she looks like.
She's a little princess, isn't she?
Yes, she is.
Isabel.
Isabel, and so I just can't resist being part of her early life, and despite the mud and the cold and the rain of Britain. I'm rather hoping that the greenhouse effect has improved the climate there somewhat. There must be an upside to the greenhouse effect, surely. So that's what I'm going to do at the end of May. And that means selling my house, which I never expected to do. I expected to sort of die in some corner of it and be found, like these old ladies that get found 3 years later with all the mail and the milk piling up and stuff. And but I've actually been doing my own clearing out of the house. Literally tons of stuff has been going, and more tons will be going back with me in a container. So here's my workroom. It's always in a mess, actually, and it's the mess is slightly different now. It's a sort of mess of moving mess rather than a working mess. And so the different orchid pictures actually mean things. And then I've got this gorgeous Aboriginal picture that I've had for I don't know, about 12 years or something. And I'll take that back with me.
Okay, so you can take us on a tour of your house?
Yes. Would you like? Which way shall we go around this way?
Because it is quite an amazing house.
Yes, well, you can go around either way and you can come back to where you started. There are a lot of pictures that are not up on the walls at the moment, and that's because I had a show at Hurstville.
So that's an orchid and nude picture, isn't it?
Yes, that's Shagged Man. He's going to go back with me. I very much enjoy painting men. It's very odd how a lot of women paint women just the way men paint women. But the male body is actually quite interesting. Its point of focus, of course, is quite different. It's really the two ends of a spine with legs and arms. And I have other people's paintings, mainly up here. That's a little pro heart up there. Now, this is a George Finey picture. It's of Christmas bells. It looks like a bunch of ties to some extent. This is another room that was mainly storage. The YHI is it's what I signed my pictures as, and it's an Aboriginal word, and it's pronounced Yahi, and I never knew that, and it's an Aboriginal goddess. So this is part of our experiment. This is Anton's painting of me. So we were exploring the Fabian style of painting, and I think that was one of the best things we did in the. Oh yes, that's my favourite self-portrait. I mean, there's more interest in a woman's body because you don't have to go right down to the end of the spine to find anything worth painting. These are that wonderful pot. These are Peter Rushforth's pots, several of them there.
Are they going to England?
They will all go to England. And he really is a living legend. His pots are quite magical.
This was one of your Lithgow series, wasn't it?
Yes, it is. That's right. This is the powerhouse. I had a show in Lithgow, which I sold a number of them, and that it's one of the very few ruins in this part of Australia, and I absolutely adore it. And I spent one day a week for a year painting it. So there are a lot of portraits. This is one of my favourite.
An interesting door that you have down there.
Yes, that was done by Ayrton, and a lot of people want that, but I can't really take it to England with me, I don't think. my daughter Sophia wants it. Yes, he did that. That's right, he took it off the hinges and laid it down and made this lovely painting of it.
And there's the Egyptian lady.
Yes. Do you want that? Shall I give it you?
I'll buy it. Tell us about the Egyptian lady.
Yes, well, the Egyptian lady started off as a tiny figurine, and I saw a photograph of it in a Sunday paper, only about an inch high, and I thought it was time she came alive. She was 4,000 years old, and I wanted to bring her back to life. Half her wig was missing, so she's got half a wig on the left and she hasn't got a wig on the right. And so I felt inside her head as though for 4,000 years she's been dreaming and she's just about to open her eyes. That's a Cretan priestess, and a friend of mine in England painted it from a photograph, and everything means something. The threes, the 4 threes being 12, the alternative spirals, absolutely everything. And she's probably carrying these lilies of dead souls, and the women are always white, and the men are always a pinkish colour, and throughout all their iconography. And so I suspect she is a sort of priestess of death, actually, but she's got a lovely personality, and so she'll go back to England all over again.
It's now the 5th of July 2006 and I'm here at Dee's house, and we've been talking about how stressful writing Movers and Shakers was, but just like childbirth, we've decided to go again, haven't we, Dee?
Yeah.
Movers and Shakers was quite a big effort, and it was something that we did in our spare time.
Yes.
So we've got a little bit of time up our sleeves. So we're going to go again, aren't we?
Yes, definitely. And there's thousands of women out there that have yet to be honoured by any recognition.
And we thought we'd have Movers and Shakers of Sydney.
Yes, Movers and Shakers of Sydney, yes, that's right.
Now, what's your definition of a mover and a shaker?
Well, somebody who has an idea and follows it up. I think that's one definition of a mover and shaker.
That's your cute little dog. What's your dog's name?
Mia. I think it could be a bit like, talking of dogs, like a Chihuahua that gets hold of an idea and then just shakes it until it actually gets it into fruition.